What's going on, everybody? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Kieran. I like helping people using a spiritual perspective. I hope you guys are doing all right. I hope you guys are alive. If there's any ghosts watching, thanks for checking me out. Appreciate you guys. You should probably just be dead though, but whatever. Today, guys, we're going to be talking about things that I can't remember. Now, we're going to be talking about listening to your intuition. Okay, we're going to be talking about how to connect to your intuition. Maybe some reasons why it's so blocked, but primarily how to listen to that inner voice and sort of the things that get in the way of that, right? Because many people, especially right now, okay, I feel like right now is a pretty important time. I also feel like a lot of spiritual people say that pretty much at any time, but it is an important time because the world is at a crossroads, okay? Especially with COVID on what seems to be the downward slope of its existence, the world has flare ups of quite a lot of events, quite a lot of things happening. And personally, it seems a lot of people are going through these waves of depression and fear and anxiety over which choices to make in their life. A lot of people are being confronted now with the things that have been holding them back, as well as the calling, the inner desire to move forward in a particular direction. And that direction may be unknown, it may be exciting, it may be powerful, it may be potent, but it is causing a lot of fear, causing a lot of people to be at a crossroads. And when you find yourself at a crossroads, you ultimately are confronted, at least as a spiritual being, somebody who sees the world with some type of spiritual perspective, you're confronted with having to listen to either your fear, your ego, or your intuition, more calming presence, right? So why don't we start at the most basic fundamentals of intuition versus ego by at least determining what one sounds like and what the other does, okay? So let's start with the ego. So the ego often sounds very chatty, okay? Very talkative, very loud. Usually it comes from this area of your brain, okay? So you really feel it here and like this. If you can imagine physically in your head where you would be thinking those thoughts, where your thoughts are coming from, it's usually here, okay? They're loud, listening to your ego usually elicits some type of response within you, emotional usually. But by that I mean causes anxiety. There's anxious feelings that come along with that. There's usually some sort of tenseness. Breath is very rapid. Not a lot of deep breathing, not a lot of calmness. In fact, you'll know when you're relaxed versus when you're not relaxed. And when you're listening to the ego, your mind, about choices to make, like if you find yourself at a crossroads and you start having those physical sort of responses and their thoughts are very loud and they're coming from places of fear and maybe just pure logic and things of that nature, you'll realize that that's more going to be your ego, okay? And there's going to be a lot of up and down responses with that, okay? Now, your intuition, on the other hand, is much more soothing, much more calm, okay? It elicits more of a response of peace, and it's something that requires an element of having to listen to it, okay? That requires an element of patience. Patience is needed when listening to your intuition. So the ego, your mind, those kind of thoughtful answers, if you're looking for those to get you through a situation in your life, you'll notice that they're very instant. They pop up right here instantly. Instant, again, up and down, up and down. They're just chatter, okay? It's radio static. It just goes and it goes and it goes on a never-ending loop. Your intuition, however, requires a bit of patience, requires you to listen for the right frequency, okay? Because your intuition is going to come from here. It's going to come from the sides. Often, sometimes it comes from here, right? It comes up, comes up. You'll feel it, not literally come from your testicles or whatever it is you have, and through your stomach and your esophagus up to your throat and your brain, not obviously, but you'll feel like this rising presence, okay? And if it isn't rising, it's sort of like coming in like a wave here, and it requires patience. And again, physically, you'll have feelings of relaxation. Your breathing will be normal. Your tongue won't stick to the roof of your mouth. You'll feel relaxed. Your shoulders might just kind of let go a little easy, right? Your shoulders might not feel so heavy anymore. There won't be so much tension in your body and in your head, okay? So it's important to start to fundamentally understand the difference between both of those voices, because when you do find yourself at a crossroads, as I believe so many people are in their life right now, there is this there is this sort of like energy that pushes us, right? And so when we find ourselves at this crossroads, we have to make this choice, right? And there's a lot of pressure to make a choice that's very quick, right? Because we live in more or less a society that really pushes us to move as quickly as possible, to never stop, okay? Like a shark, continuously going. Sharks don't go backwards, by the way. That's why I use that reference, in case you didn't know that. Sharks are also all incredibly racist. True fact. So, like a shark, we live in a society where you have to keep moving. And the more that we move, the more that we push forward, we don't stop to understand the choices that we're making. So when you find yourself at a crossroads, inevitably the weight of that decision is upon you, and you need to decide what is best for you, which direction is actually going to help you move in the direction of your dreams. Okay, so when you're listening to this, your intuition, right? When you're listening to this voice that carries you through that internal, sort of internal compass. Okay, the reason why, excuse me, the reason why that's so important is because listening to your mind and your heart can be very, let's say, it can be very confusing sometimes, okay? And your intuition is there as a small voice to bridge the gap between the two, okay? And you can think of yourself existing within three different parts, okay? This is just sort of a basic idea, right? Not some deep theory, but let's just go with the presence of having these three different selves. So first you have the self of the mind, right? You have the mind that says, that does, that talks to you, that that tells you all this stuff, that chatters, that goes and goes and goes. Okay, it's the mind that might think, oh well, that flower is dumb, or I don't like that movie, or whatever. It's the part that talks to you. It's also the part that says things, negative or positive, right? It's that chatty part of your existence. It's the mind, right? It's the mind. Then the second part, the second idea of you, is the person that responds to it. Okay, so this is primarily the the engine of our identity, the version of ourselves that we're constantly with, that's also constantly fighting and conflicting with our mind, right? And you know this because, how many times have you said to yourself, oh, I'm trying to change, but I can't. Or, I'm trying to do something, but my thoughts get in the way, or I can't because, I'm telling myself this, or I'm listening to this part of myself. And so there's like this war going on within you, right? And that war causes a lot of conflict and intense sort of feelings within the physical body. And it creates this sort of duality of identity at the same time. There's this separation. It becomes you, the mind, and it becomes you, the version of yourself fighting against that mind. The sort of person always trying to do something against something else, right? So it's like you're in constant battle with yourself, okay? It's like there's always been this war going on. And so again, when we try to change, we've put it into some sort of categories where there's me or you, the version trying to change, trying to do something, and then the other version of ourselves that is conflicting against that, right? And then there's this third version. There's this third version of ourselves, and that is just the presence. That's the thing that's always there, observing and watching these two versions of yourself fight. Okay, and that's the version of you that is the true version of you. It's the realist version of you that you could experience right now in this time in your lifetime on Earth, right? It is this presence, okay? It's absolute presence, it's energy, right? What you would think of as your soul, okay? So obviously you can access this at any time, your higher self, that these energies, fundamentally and easily, because the best way to do that, the easiest way to do that, is to remember that once you shut off your mind, once you stop thinking, once you go into some sort of meditative state, you'll realize that your thoughts aren't thinking anything anymore. So you're not thinking, or you're at very least not paying attention to your thoughts, and you're just aware. You're just aware of your body, you're aware of your breath, you're aware of things existing, you're aware of your life living, you're aware of yourself living your life, okay? And there's no judgments, there's quiet, it's peace, it's silence inside of your mind. And so there's an awareness, you're into awareness now, okay? And so taking that even a step further, what happens is you become aware of awareness. So once you're aware of everything happening, you can then become aware of the fact that you're aware. There's like this other deeper level. It's like one of those Russian dolls that you can kind of take out, take apart, and then there's like another little one in there. I forget what they're called. Something I probably couldn't pronounce for sure, but you know, those ones, they're just little versions of the same thing going on and on. So it's kind of like that. You have this awareness of awareness, and that really expands the mind into this whole different area, right? And when you kind of get into that awareness of awareness area, that third self, uh, you start to realize that the war within you, and the reason why you can't fundamentally listen to your intuition, is because A, you're not in that awareness level so much of your existence, okay? You're always in this conflict. And that because you're always in that conflict, you can't hear that awareness level. You can't hear that third self. See, what happens is we fundamentally live our lives mostly through these one or two selves, okay? We're always at war with each other, ourselves, really. We're always at war with some part of ourselves. We're always trying to conquer our minds, conquer everything. We're trying to force control upon ourselves, discipline ourselves and life into some sort of rules of rigidity that try to, that is somehow going to make everything okay, right? But the reason we can't hear our intuition is because we're always clashing with ourselves. We can't hear the third self because we're operating from one or two. And the funniest part about that is in order to listen, you need to stop talking, right? But we can't stop talking because we're in a war. So the funny thing is like we haven't actually decided that this war was going on. We've just decided to pick up a sword because we saw somebody else with a sword, which is again a metaphor for other versions of ourselves. And we just started fighting. We never really asked ourselves like what the hell we were fighting for. We thought that we had to fight the mind to get something, but we don't realize that the subconscious, right, these other parts of our mind, that first self, right, where this is coming from, right, all of our fears, our anxieties, right, that the other part of ourself that we would identify with as ourselves, like me identifying with as Kieran, that part, we're using that to fight our subconscious, our mind. But the thing is, the subconscious is more powerful than you are. It's always there. It's lurking in the back. It's a powerful thing. You can't just fight it. You can't just will it to do something very different than what it has been doing your whole life, okay? It doesn't work like that. There's ways to get around it, of course, but that's not the point of this video. But it's a very powerful thing, okay? So this war that you're having within yourself, it causes you to miss chances, miss opportunities, and you can't hear yourself properly. And so we think that we have to conquer it, we have to destroy it. We have to somehow go at war with ourselves and then beat it into submission, and then we'll finally have control over our lives. But we fail to miss the insight, which could come from your intuition, of course, that by picking up a sword in the first place, you've already lost. It's sort of like saying, throughout history, people have gone to war to get peace. Like when did that ever work, right? When did war ever bring anybody peace? It certainly didn't bring people peace of self, okay, and it didn't bring the world peace either. Even justifiable wars, such as World War II, let's say, it didn't bring the world peace. There was about 3 or 4 more wars directly after that, okay? And then the Cold War, which is a large spanning thing. So anyway, it didn't bring the world peace, okay? And so war doesn't bring yourself peace either for the same exact reasons. So when you pick up a sword to fight yourself, you've already lost. When the best thing you can do is to go into your third self, go into the presence, go into the awareness, go into that state of being, and observe yourself, witness yourself from another layer, and you start to realize that you don't need to engage. And in fact, engaging is already the first step to losing. And in fact, there's lots of little examples of that throughout people's personal lives, like engaging with people that are very conflict oriented, very angry people. Like psychologists and self-help people will say that the moment that you've lost is when you start engaging with people like that rather than backing away, right? So it's almost like when people, even if you're right, when you get angry, you start to lose a lot of credibility, right? Because you've engaged, you're operating from a level of war, okay? So you're not going to bring the desired result, okay? You're not going to bring peace. So it's the same kind of idea here within yourself. You can't hear your intuition because you're essentially always fighting, you're always battling, you're always talking, always chatting, right? But when you find yourself at a crossroads, more than ever you need to listen to your intuition. And even if you're not at a crossroads, simply wanting to make decisions for yourself, listening to your intuition is going to carry you forward in a more subtle way, but in an easier, more fluid way than just constantly having to battle yourself. Because so many people are trying to change themselves and fight themselves and just are at war with themselves in general, that they don't really stop to think if doing that is leading to anything, because it isn't, right? People try to change themselves without accepting themselves first. And it's a paradox. The more you try to change yourself, the more you try to achieve something, the less it comes in, because you're not accepting the reality of the situation. You're not giving yourself time to accept where you are, who you are. Okay, so it's like, for instance, if you're trying to change yourself, if you're at war with yourself and you're engaging with this other side of you, this other layer, this one and two back and forth battle within you, um, trying to change yourself, the reason you fail is because you're not accepting that that's all of you. You're not accepting that that's all of you. Okay, one, two, and three. So the third part of you is who you truly are, but the one and two part exists within you. It's the human layer of being here, and you have to learn to accept that. And when you can't accept your own humanity, especially as a spiritual being, you will struggle constantly and consistently to change. I'm taking this from my own personal life, right? How many times I've tried to change my diet or some kind of habit or something that I didn't like that was going on. And the more I tried to do that, the more I seemed to have these flare-ups of binge eating or something like that, because I wasn't just accepting the fact that I had these things. And I took that as some personal affront because I felt that I needed to conquer myself. But when I start listening to my intuition, I've had much more energy recently, and I've begun to take better care of myself in general because I haven't been forcing myself to do anything. I've just been accepting the fact that, I have some things that are less than desirable that I wouldn't choose, I guess, consciously to have. But once I've accepted that, it just becomes easier. I'm not trying to change myself, because when you're trying to change yourself, you don't actually change, because it doesn't make any sense. The caterpillar doesn't think or try to become a cocoon, and the cocoon doesn't try to force itself into a butterfly. It just happens in a natural rhythm. But we're not able to do that. But anyway, change is a whole different topic for a different day. The idea is we force ourselves with these sort of wars within ourselves that block our intuition, right? They cause us to have a great deal of pain and conflict within us, and it would behoove us to really take a step back and to try and listen to our intuition. And before this video ends, the best ways to do that are meditation. The best way is just sit with yourself for 10 minutes at least daily to try and give yourself some time to just focus on your breath and to get into that awareness state. You'll realize that once you're there, once you can be still, once you can practice some form of mindfulness or stillness, be in that energy to retreat your energy, you'll realize that the answers start to kind of pour into you, and they'll come, again, like we're talking about. They'll come from here. They might rise up, and they'll be soft, they'll be whispers, okay? But you have to stop talking in order to hear them. It's not the universe's fault or God's fault or the force's fault. It's none of that. No, there's nothing external going on to cause you some bullshit, okay? It's none of that's going on. If you're not listening, then you're not going to get the answers. It's simple as that. You don't need to rely on a spirit guide, a god, a deity, or your next door neighbor to tell you what to do. Not often, okay? Most of the time you can listen to yourself, but we're not trained to do that. From birth, we're almost trained to do the opposite. We're trained to give ourselves away and to listen to others and help them as much as possible. There's nothing wrong with helping anybody else. I love doing it, okay? I'm sure many of you are naturally empaths. You like helping people, understanding others, and you're probably good at it. But the idea is we're not really good at doing it for ourselves. So we need to retrain ourselves to listen to our intuition, because it's a natural, innate gift that we have, this ability to listen, let go, learn, understand ourselves, but we've been cut off from it for a long time. So by simply meditating either with your eyes closed or your eyes open, because your eyes open is another way of doing it, and that's where most of your life is experienced. Well, at least part of your life where everything happens. So, doing these types of things and being still, even just practicing stillness and just being in the moment wherever you are, and just taking 10 minutes out of your day at the very least, whether it's a personal meditation, a guided meditation, just getting yourself comfortable. These things will help you connect to your intuition, and it's not something that happens overnight, but it'll happen easier than you think, and your life will become so much more easier if you attempt to do these things rather than continue this war within yourself. So engage less with yourself, engage less with your thoughts, this radio chatter, and listen more to yourself. Practice listening. And your intuition, probably within a week or so, will become heightened enough to the point that you'll be able to get the next step and maybe even a few ideas along the way to help you with whatever you're asking. Okay, so I hope this video helped. I hope you guys have a good day, good Friday, good weekend. Enjoy your weekend, guys. Don't do anything that I wouldn't do, which is to say drugs. I don't know. Don't do anything bad, guys. I hope you guys have a good one. Bye-bye.